Good evening and welcome to Car Front Seat with sound designer Cricket Myers. I'm Julia and I'm the Director of Education and Community Engagement for the Center for the Performing Arts in Carmel, Indiana. Now, since we have people joining us from all over the country today, I want to tell you a little bit about the center before we get going with this program. We are a not-for-profit organization and we consist of 3 venues. Our first venue is the Palladium, and it's a beautiful concert hall. You see the picture of it there, the outside of it. It seats about 1,600 people. We also have a 500-seat proscenium arch theater called the Tarkington and a 200-seat black box theater. We enjoy 6 resident companies, and we do present performances from artists really from all over the world and multiple genres. It's a wonderful place. If you get a chance to visit Indianapolis and Carmel, we hope you come visit us. Now, this was going to be our 10th anniversary season, just about to start. And unfortunately, because of COVID, we've had to cancel or postpone most of our performances and all of our education events and classes. So instead, we've decided to take them online. And that's why tonight, we're doing Car Front Seat with Cricket virtually. Now, typically, here's how Car Front Seat works. A couple of months before the performer is going to be at the center, I'll email the tour manager and ask permission for a small group of students to sit in on the sound check. And then they get to Q&A with the artist, and then we provide dinner and tickets to the performance. It's a wonderful experience. Well, again, of course, because we're not having live performances, we can't do that on site at the center. So we're doing it virtually. I do invite you to take a look at our website because we have all kinds of education programs that we offer, and many of them during this time have gone online. We have programs from novice to masters. Now, tonight what's going to happen is we have some students from different schools, high schools and colleges, and they're really interested in sound design. So they're going to be asking Cricket questions. The rest of you who are joining us through Zoom, there's a little Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and you can click on that and send a question in through the chat. And those of you joining us on Facebook Live, same thing. If you have a question for us, post it in the comments, and if we get time after answering all the students' questions, we will certainly take those questions. So now, I want to introduce you to Cricket Myers. I've got my little cheat sheet here because she has so many honors. I want to make sure that I don't miss any. Cricket is a Los Angeles-based sound designer. She's worked on over 300 productions in the past 15 years. Now on Broadway, she earned a Tony nomination for the show Bengal Tiger at the Baghdad Zoo. It also won her a Drama Desk Award. Her Tony nomination happened to be the first for a woman in the category of sound design. I think that's pretty cool. She's earned over 23 Ovation Award nominations, as well as winning the League of Professional Theater Women Ruth Morley Design Award. Cricket has been named Sound Designer of the Year multiple times by Stage Scene LA. We are so fortunate and extremely happy to introduce you tonight to Cricket Myers. Cricket, come on, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, it's great to be here and chatting with all of you. I figured I'd start off by telling you a little bit about where I came from and how I got where I am. So I grew up in Michigan. I went to school there, and when I graduated high school, I wanted to be a physics major. I wanted to work in aerospace engineering mostly was kind of what I came out of school interested in. So I decided to go to Colorado College in Colorado Springs, and I'm so glad that I went to a liberal arts college. I was there for about a year before I decided that although I liked physics, I really loved theater, and it was important for me to do something that I loved. So I switched my major and went into theater, and I focused mostly on stage management while I was in college, but I got to try a lot of different things. But what I discovered kind of in hindsight later in life was that liberal arts college was really valuable in giving me a sense of the world and a great foundation in literature and art and politics and science. I got a little bit of everything, and all of that knowledge really informs the way I design now. So in hindsight, I'm very glad I ended up where I did, and I was in the mountains where I could go hiking. From there, I decided to get a bunch of internships. I thought I wanted to be a stage manager. I internship with San Diego Opera as a production assistant. I really think I got the job because I was abroad when I interviewed. So I was actually in India when I interviewed for the job. And I really think they hired me because they wanted to know why I was in India. From there, I went to internship with Central City Opera. Also as a production assistant. And it was right around then that I decided that maybe stage management wasn't what I wanted to do. I like variety. I like things that are constantly changing. And a stage manager, because they spend, they're there for all of rehearsals and then all of tech and then all of the performances. It's many months doing the same production. And I found that I just needed more change in my life and more variety, which maybe makes things harder, but I loved it. So I, started thinking about other things in theater that I wanted to do. And I got a fantastic internship at Midland Community Theater, which is in Midland, Texas, an amazing group of people and the theater is mostly volunteer run with a kind of a core staff. So they were so excited to have interns there that, that were eager and excited, and they let me try everything. So I got to build sets and design sets. I got to shop for props. I got to sew costumes. But where I found my true love was actually in the booth with the lighting and the sound. Turns out I'm not great at stitching and I can't draw. So costumes and scenic are kind of out. The TD kind of limited what he let me do because, half an inch here or there doesn't really make a difference, but it does, and the sets were crooked. So, but I found my love in lighting and sound, and had a wonderful time working on the productions there, and then decided to apply for grad school. So I went to CalArts. I got a master's degree in sound design for theater. When I came out to Los Angeles to go to CalArts, I thought, well, I'll just be here for 3 years. I'll get my degree and then I'll leave because I don't like big cities and I don't want to live in a big city. But here I am in Los Angeles 20 years later. I love this town. I love this city. And I've been a freelance designer ever since. Most of my work in Los Angeles and then a little bit all over the country, which gives me the variety and change I need for my life. So that's me. Julia, do we want to go to questions?
It's wonderful to hear your background. That's so exciting to me because that's the whole point of Car Front Seat, is to understand that pathway that professionals in the performing arts take to get them to where they are today. And that's why this is such an amazingly valuable program. Now, you laughed about your technical skills in costuming. My degree's in theater too. And when I worked at a summer stock theater, my best friend was a hot glue gun because I don't sew either.
The only
but
thing
you mentioned internships too, and that's so crucial. And luckily at the center, we have all kinds of internships. So I encourage all the students out there to take a peek at our website and see what internships are available.
I was only allowed to sew buttons. It was the only thing I could screw up.
I was able to sort socks too and hang costumes in order. So. All right, so let's get to the students. I'm excited because, like I said, we have a good mix of high school and university students. So our first up is Olivia. And Olivia, if you don't mind joining us, turn on your camera and your microphone.
Hi there.
Olivia is a theater major at Butler University in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Yes, and it's so great to be with you. My question for you, Cricket, is when it comes to your process, where and how do you sort of start that all, and who on the production and performance side of things really contributes to what you create?
That's a great question. And I love talking about my process. So I always start with the script. I always start with the script. It is the foundation of what we're creating. It is the reason we're coming together is this script. So I always start there. And the first thing I do is read that script just like it's a story. I'm not taking notes. I'm not writing anything down. I just read the story. And I'm reading it because it's like, what is this story? How does it speak to me? What's it telling me? What do I learn from this journey? What do the characters learn? And what do I as a reader take away from it? You know, like what excites me about it? So that's where I start. Then I'll let it sit for a couple of days and I'll go back and read it again. And then I start marking things in the script. And when I first start, most of my notes are like something or shift. I don't know what it is, but I'm taking notes on where I see emotional shifts or where I see important things that need to be highlighted. Like this is an important scene that the audience needs to get this piece of information to really understand the story or the theme or the idea. So I take a bunch of notes. Then I reach out to the director and say, let's sit down and talk, because I want to make sure that the story that the director wants to tell is the same story that I read. Sometimes they see it from a different perspective, or they have a different idea about what's important about the story. So I want to make sure I'm on the same page with them. So as far as like the other people I collaborate with, the director is huge because, right, again, they're leading the production. So we really want to make sure we're all telling the same story. Then I spend a lot of time in production meetings. I listen to the way that the directors and the other designers talk about the production. What do the other designers find exciting? What are the things that the lighting designer wants to highlight? What's the story that the set's gonna tell? How does the set change? Does it start as a cluttered set that strips away, or does it go the other way? Does it fill up over the course of a show? Are there big dramatic moments like a huge reveal? Because all of that's gonna inform my sound. If lighting is doing a big bump or scenic has a giant move, I want to support that energy. So I take notes on all of those things. And I think that's what I love about theater most is it's a collaboration. We're all working together. We all have ideas and we all find ways to support each other to make those changes. So that's kind of where I start. And then, from there I build cue sheets. My cue sheets help me kind of collate all of my ideas. So, I've gone through the script and said, shift here, shift there, change there, something happens here. And then the cue sheet lets me kind of take a step back and look at it and say, okay, I know from reading it and from talking with the director that I need to go from here to here emotionally. And my cue sheet says, you've got 10 steps to do that, or you've got 30 steps to do that. So it's a way to step back and say, I need to get from here to here. And how long, like how many changes, how long does it take me to get there? So from there, I can start building the cues because I know how big those shifts have to be or how subtle they have to be to get where I'm going.
Right.
And then the actors come into the equation. So the actors in rehearsal, they form a rhythm. They have a rhythm to the way they speak. They have a rhythm to the way they move. They have a rhythm to the way this language comes out. And I need to make sure that my sound is in sync with their rhythm. Not just a literal underscoring that I'm beating to them, but if they're using a lot of punctuations and dramatic moments, then my sound's going to have a lot of punctuations to it. But if the scenes flow and ebb, then my sound will have that shape too. So
that's awesome. Thank you.
It's fascinating. And, in preparing for this, thank you, Olivia. Great question, by the way. In preparing for this, Cricket, when I was Googling about, reading things about you, there were so many quotes that I found, and I had this whole list. But what you just said, I'm going to go ahead and read this one. And it says, Pietra's set is but one element in the year's most striking imaginative production design, highlighted by Cricket Meyer's multi-ingredient sound mix, which heightened the chill factor at every twist and turn. And you know, before I never thought of sound really that way, but it really is a character in the play, isn't it? Or in the musical.
That's always what I aim for. And
Yeah.
I don't want to be just a thing that's layered on top of the cast. I want to be something that's interacting and working with them and supporting them. So.
Perfect. Okay, next up, we have a high school student, Sean. And Sean goes to Carmel High School, which is actually where the Center for Performing Arts is located in Carmel, Indiana. So Sean, why don't you join us and have a chat with Cricket?
Hi.
Hey, is it working?
Yep.
Great. Okay, so the question I had for you was, what was your experience with really getting into the profession that you're currently so successful in? And as a part of that, do you remember the first project that you worked on?
I do remember my first project, or at least my first professional project. So as far as the process to get where I am, you know, when you first come out of school, this is a job that you get hired because people know you. You get hired because of your connections. And so when you first come out of school, the most important thing is to start making those connections. I tell students all the time, most of my jobs early in my career came from other sound designers. Either they hired me to assist them, or I had been assisting them and they got offered a show they couldn't do. And so they said to the producer, well, I can't do it, you should call my assistant Cricket. So for me, I tell students, like, when when you're getting ready to graduate, when you're getting ready to enter this world, reach out to the sound designers in your area, reach out to the sound designers in the area you want to live. If you want to go to New York or Los Angeles or Chicago, research the people there, send them emails and say, hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee and pick your brain a little bit? I'm always going to take a student up on that. I'm always going to happily sit down and chat with someone. And I think most sound designers are the same way. You know, they'll spend time, you know, in this world on Zoom or in a coffee shop, or even if it's over email. And for me, the people I hire are the people I like sitting and chatting with. So sitting and having coffee with me is a great way for me to get a sense of who you are and what your knowledge is, and you know, do I want to have my lunch breaks on a 10 out of 12 with this person? You know, and then, you know, I start hiring people. And I think other sound designers work the same way. It's like they want to get to know you and then they'll hire you. Oh, I lost my train of thought. But, you know, the more you get to know people, the more work there is, the more designers you're assisting, the more producers you meet. And then I also, early in my career, made an effort to go to opening nights, to award shows where producers and other designers were gathered, any kind of social gathering where I could get a chance to shake hands. Hey, I'm Cricket, I'm a sound designer. Hey, I haven't met you yet. My name's Cricket, I'm a sound designer. Because you never know when someone's gonna be like, oh, you're a sound designer? I need one of those for a show next month. What are you doing next month? And that happens way more than you think it does. It really does. People would be like, oh, I need one of those. Do you have a card? You know? And so, you know, just kind of making those connections, getting to know people, following up with people. I tell people all the time, like, if I've hired you to do something and then it's been a couple months since you've heard from me, send me an email. Because then next time I'm scrambling to find someone, literally your name is in my inbox. I see it right there. And I say, oh, I need someone. This person just reached out to me and was like, hey, I don't have anything going on. I'll be like, great, I need someone. You have spare time? Let me know. I might have a job. As far as my first sound design, so my first professional sound design came from a designer I had been assisting, got offered the show. He couldn't do it. He said, call Cricket, she can do it. It was a production called Dear Charlotte, and it followed the story of Charlotte Bronte and the Bronte sisters. There was a lot of underscoring, lots of fun, sound effects, lots of environmental sound because the set was very abstract. So sound really had to set the scene. And I was so nervous and so scared. So for every single sound effect, I brought in like 60 different options. You know, it's like, oh, we need outside birds. Here's 15 different bird tracks. And like, oh, there's a thunderstorm. I brought in like 40 different thunders. It was like, because I just didn't know. I didn't know what would work, and I didn't know what the director would like, and I wanted to have lots of options. And this was also before the time of kind of computerized sound. So like every time I wanted to try something, I had to burn a new CD. So it took time. So I wanted to have lots of options. And I have settled down now as a designer, and I know which thunders are going to sound realistic and which thunders are going to sound really cheesy. And I have my favorite rain tracks and things like that. So I don't feel the need to bring in 70 different options for tech, but it was a fantastic production. So
Thank you, Sean. That was a good question. Very good. So, and Cricket, I think that is just fantastic advice. No matter what field you're in, theater or accounting or, you know, marketing, is that, you know, the networking, making connections, and follow up. I don't care what field you're in. Those are crucial things for young people and older people to know.
well, and the worst that'll happen is they'll say, no, I don't have any time to meet with you.
But
And then you haven't lost
you plant
anything.
that seed, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It's like you haven't lost anything, and maybe someone
No.
else will have time. So.
Perfect. All right, so next up we have Paris, and Paris is a senior at North Central High School. So Paris, there you are. Hi. What question do you want to ask Cricket tonight?
My question is, what is the most challenging part of your job due to COVID-19? How is it this year and how is it?
What's most challenging about my job with COVID specifically? Oh, yeah. Well, so the most challenging part is that it doesn't exist. My job has gone away, or theater for the time being has gone away. So that's definitely the most challenging, and the kind of emotional ramifications of that. Like I live in the theater. It's what I do. I design between 25 and 30 productions a year, and I'm not really good at time off. And I've had a lot of time off. But as producers are discovering new things and finding new ways to work in this world, a lot of it is falling on sound. How do we make Zoom sound good? How do we do a musical when nobody's in the same room? So a lot of that falls on me, and also the radio drama. The idea of a radio drama is starting to come back, which is really exciting, and there's a lot of fun things for sound in radio dramas. So I've learned a lot about streaming platforms and streaming technology. I'm part of a group of sound designers who are struggling with the inherent latency that exists on the internet. So it's very, very hard to get two people to sing together over the internet because of that latency based on connection. And so what are platforms and other ways that we can start having things like musicals or group numbers that can be done, live on Zoom or whatever. So a lot of that. I'm actually about to jump into a virtual reality opera, which is really exciting. And the opera singers are not used to microphones or being reinforced, and they're not used to like monitors because they normally just listen to the orchestra. But we actually won't have an orchestra because that's all going to be pre-recorded. We can't get them together. So the singers are going to have to adjust to the idea of hearing the orchestra directly in their ears. And the idea of an in-ear monitor, which if you've never worn one is very disorientating. They're going to have to get used to having, mics on, and what that means to have a pack and a wire on your body. But they're also going to be dealing with motion capture suits, which will be a new experience for everybody. And for, myself and the rest of the crew, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how we can set up the stage to have the live singers all in the room together, but in separate pods, so that they aren't breathing on each other, and so we get kind of a live, natural sound of a theater, but without actually interacting. So that's been that's been my week. I've spent all week doing this. So, and it's gonna perform the end of September. So.
Wow, that's fascinating. A virtual reality opera. Now, is that on a platform like Second Life or something like that?
I don't know exactly. I don't know those details
Oh.
because we literally just started. I
Sure.
do know it's going to be on YouTube 360.
Gotcha.
But once I
Okay.
know the details, I can let you all know.
Yeah, do. We all want to see that. Thank you, Paris, for your question. That was wonderful. And I do want to remind folks who joined us late that if you're joining us on the Zoom webinar, there's a little Q&A button down at the bottom. You just put your cursor over the bottom of your screen. Click on that. If you have a question, we'll try to get to your questions. And those of you who are joining us on Facebook Live, if you have a question, type it in the comments. And if we have time, we'll get to those as well. So next up, we have a college student from Auburn, and it's Annabelle from Auburn University. Annabelle, what would you like to ask Cricket tonight?
Hi.
Hi. So my question is, sound is a lot of the times it's really straightforward. You have like microphones, which aren't really designed. They're pretty technical. And then a lot of the times, like in scripts, it'll say doorbell sound, and then a doorbell sound plays. So I guess my question would be, how do you incorporate your design and your style throughout the whole work?
Sure. So for me, again, it's all about the story. So there are things that the script needs that we have to have. The doorbell has to happen. The door knock has to happen. The dog barking or whatever that they comment on has to happen. But there's a lot of places where I can use sound, even in subtle ways that help tell the story that isn't necessarily called out in the script. For me, changes in volume and the idea of silence can really tell a story. So, okay, we're outside in a park. Sure, there are birds. Maybe the birds are very, very busy. And then in an important moment, in a moment where I want to draw the audience in, the birds slowly disappear and fade away, and we go to silence, or we go to just one thin bird track. So the chaos goes away, everything becomes a little simpler, and it actually kind of draws the audience in and makes you listen a little bit more, because your ears understand that sound is going away, even though your brain doesn't understand it. So you're like, oh, I got to listen to this. I did a production where I just had a subtle tone running through the entire show, and then at the very end it went away, and everybody kept talking about how the end was so deafening, but the actors' volumes didn't change. It's just that this bed went away. So I like to find little manipulative ways like that to tell the story, and the different effects that you pick. I wish I had pulled up. I have a little collection of sound effects I could demonstrate this with, but if you think about the idea of like crickets chirping, if you listen to a bunch of different sound effects, you're going to hear crickets that are super aggressive and like really loud percussive crickets. You're also going to find crickets that are like gentle and mellow and quiet and more distant. So I can pick, if this is a scene at night outside and they're nervous and upset, I'm going to pick a more, aggressive cricket sound. If it's like a happy, romantic, beautiful, loving scene outside, I'm going to pick one that's more even and mellow and soft, So those are little ways that I can tell the story even when it's just sound effects. I also talk a lot about system design and when I'm doing musicals, because musicals is really all about the gear. But different microphones and different speakers have different properties, and they sound different. There are speakers that sound warmer. There are speakers that sound more crisp or clean. If I'm doing a rock and roll heavy bass show, I'm going to want big, crisp, clear speakers because I want the vocals to be able to really cut through that guitar and cut through that drum to be heard. So I need something that's going to be really crisp. But if I've got like a large, 20-piece orchestra full of strings, I'm going to want a warmer sound to my speakers. I don't want that crispness. I want something that feels more lush, maybe. So I might select a different brand of speaker for that. The same with microphones. I can close mic a violin and clip the mic right on that violin. Or for example, I did a cello show or a cello performance, and they said to me, oh, the 6 cellists walk out real fast and sit down and have to start playing right away. And I was like, oh, like cellos sound great when I put a 414 out, give it a little distance, a little air, put it out there. So I'll just have crew members run out like 3 microphones in front of the 6 cellist and we'll play it. Then they said, oh, we're playing the Game of Thrones theme. And I listened to that, and the Game of Thrones theme is all about that bow work. It's got really precise, movement in the way the bow and a more percussive sound to it. And I was like, oh, from 3 microphones 4 feet out in front of them, we're not going to hear that. So instead, I got 6 microphones that clipped right onto the cello. And so the microphone was this far from the strings. And so it picked up all of that nuance and where the musicians were digging in. So again, it's stuff the audience isn't aware of at all and never knows that it happens. But the gear I pick can very much change the way a show sounds. So, is that...
Great question, Annabelle. Annabelle, are you a theater major at Auburn?
Yes.
Awesome.
And so your focus is tech theater?
Yes.
Great. Well, that's a great question. So thank you. Cricket, can you read just a regular book without thinking of, oh, I would do this here?
Yeah, I love to read. I absolutely love reading. So I'm always reading. But what I do find is, like when everyone's favorite book gets turned into a movie and then everybody complains because it doesn't look the way they pictured it in their head. Right. I rarely have that problem because I don't tend to picture that. I hear it, but I don't tend to picture it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
All right, next up we have Katie. And Katie, if you want to jump in here, she is a senior at Ball State University, which is in Muncie, Indiana. So Katie, what would you like to ask Cricket?
I would like to ask you, what is your favorite sound design that you did over the course of your career?
I've got a lot of favorites. So the first one that pops into mind, of course, is Bengal Tiger at the Baghdad Zoo, because I got to do it 3 times. We did it first at the Kirk Douglas in Los Angeles, which was a very narrow space, kind of long and skinny. Then we moved to the Mark Taper Forum in LA, which is a very wide space, so the audience is kind of almost 3/4. And then we moved it, of course, to New York, where the house got, almost 3 times as large, and we had balconies and levels, and it was more narrow than the Taper, but huge. So I really got to play with how the sound works in those different spaces and how to get the feeling that I wanted and how to keep that intimate feeling that I had at the Kirk Douglas and keep making it bigger and bigger. And of course, it was a very kind of complex show. There was constant sound, lots and lots of cues that moved around the room and changed. And one of my favorite cues in it was the call to prayer that you hear from a Muslim mosque. And I have traveled to Turkey and I've traveled to Morocco, so I've actually heard these mosques in real life. And what's beautiful about them is that it's not just one mosque playing the call to prayer. It's multiple mosques all over the city, and that each one, you hear it, and then you hear it reflect off the buildings around you, and then you hear the next one and it reflects off the buildings around you. So there's this incredible feeling of just being surrounded and enveloped by this gorgeous sound. So when the Bengal Tiger script said, the tiger hears a call to prayer, I was like, this is like, I know what that actually is. So I had multiple sounds and I had them reflecting from speakers. So you'd hear it and then you'd hear it echo in different speakers, and the next one would then echo. And I was only given an hour of quiet time and I spent 45 minutes working on that one cue. And I kind of knocked everything else out real quick and fixed it as I went. So, and the other, I think my second favorite is it was another opportunity where we really, the sound became a large underscoring force and a large storytelling force. It was a production of Bent that I did at the Mark Taper Forum, which is about the Holocaust and specifically homosexuals in the Holocaust. And it was working with Moises Kaufman, who also directed Bengal Tiger. And Moises is amazing about talking to designers about story and then letting us tell the story. He didn't tell me what cues I had to play where. He told me what story he was trying to tell and let me figure out how to tell that in sound. So he would say, in this transition, this is what happens to our characters. This is the emotional journey they've gone on. This is where they find themselves. And I got to figure out how to tell that journey. And once we went to the concentration camp, it's a concentration camp. It's dark, it's depressing, but the first couple scenes are actually really funny. Like the script is funny. And so it's like, how do I find levity in a dark place? And so that was really exciting to play with different sounds and where do we let it be funny? Where do we hear birds and music and things to lighten it? And then when does the electric fence make itself known? When does it become darker? When are you reminded that these people are trapped, So both of those were very exciting. It's all about the story for me.
Great question, Katie. And Cricket, I too have been to Turkey, to Istanbul, and I often tell the story of hearing the call to prayers. It is the most hauntingly beautiful because it's like a fog. It's like an audible fog over the city. It's beautiful. So yeah. I would love to have seen that. Hey, you know what? We've got some questions coming in. We've got about 10 minutes and we have one more student. Krista's going to ask a question, but I'm going to answer one of the questions that came into the Q&A for you because I know the answer. One person wants to know what the things, she said keys on the wall behind you are. I too am a runner. Cricket is a runner. So I know that those are medals from different races. So yeah. That one I'm going to throw out the answer. But we've got some good questions in the Q&A that I want to try to get to if we have time. So we're going to bring Krista on. Krista has an undergraduate degree in theater, but she graduated almost a year ago now with a master's in arts administration. I know she's got a lot of background in technical theater. She also happens to work at the center with me. So Krista, what's your question?
Cricket, I was curious, as a part of your sound design degree, did you also study composition, music composition?
I didn't. I only studied, I took a lot of music history courses and a lot of kind of music classes in general, just to get a broader sense of all the different kinds of music that's out there. But I actually don't.
Krista, can you mute? I think we've got some feedback coming from your mic.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you finished with your answer to that, Cricket?
Mm-hmm. Okay. In that I don't. But music history is huge. And knowing the period music, knowing how the styles change, and then also keeping up with all of the new music that comes out, and who's the new thing out there, and not just the stuff you hear on the radio. So.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm going to take some of the questions that are coming in through the Q&A chat. We've got one from Rob, and it's kind of a two-part question. From where do you get your sound effects, and do you create them like a Foley artist or record them yourself?
So I get them anywhere I can find them. So I have a hard drive that is full of a huge collection of sound effects. I went out shortly after I graduated and bought the BBC collection and the Oh, it's so sad. It's been so long since I've been through my hard drive. I can't remember the name of the other one. The other massively large sound collection of sound effects that are out there. You can buy, kind of entire collections. Wow, I can't come up with it. Sound Ideas. It's called Sound Ideas. And then through the years, I have recorded things. I have made stuff on Foley. The introduction of kind of the iTunes model of buying things has been amazing, because the Sound Ideas library, if you just go out and buy it, it's like $1,200, which is insane. But now it's actually digital, and you can say, I need specifically this track and that track. So I got 7,000 tracks of sound effects for that money. Wow. But I can also now just go pick and choose the one thing I need, because there are definitely things on that sound effects collection I've never touched. But there's lots of people who have different collections. There's a website I like called Sound Dogs, that it's the same idea. You can buy it track by track. So you're like, oh, I need a great cricket track. You can go listen to 50 of them, pick the one you like, and just buy that one, which is a really nice resource. I've definitely done some recording on my own. I love the fact that now there's like the Zoom handheld recorders, or even your cell phones have amazing recording capabilities now that didn't exist when I was in grad school. And so I am always going out and recording locations and recording sounds, and really just taking time to sit and listen to different cities and different sounds. Anytime I'm in a new place, like, how does this city feel different than Los Angeles? Or how does it, what sounds am I hearing here? Especially when you travel internationally, they all sound different. So I make a point of recording. I was traveling through China, and the person I was traveling with thought it was nuts, because we found this gorgeous water wheel that had this wonderful water sound and this creaking of the wood and this incredible sound. And I insisted on standing in front of the water wheel silently and recording for 10 minutes. So like, why? It's like, I don't know. I don't know that I will ever use it, but it's beautiful and I want to remember it. So I'm going to record it. Yeah.
My middle son is a video producer and is so good at editing. And I can remember from the time he was in high school, it was really important to him to just get shots and video of just things in his environment. And I think when you're in production, you probably see the world and hear it a little differently.
Yeah.
Okay, we got two more. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I tell everyone, if you want to go into sound, if you want to be a sound designer, make a point of like sitting somewhere and closing your eyes and just sitting silently for 5 minutes and listening. Because our brains prioritize our eyes over our ears. So we'll see something and we understand what it is, and we know it's not a threat, it's not dangerous, and so our brain will literally tune it out. But if you close your eyes and you remove that stimulus, your ears suddenly start picking up on things you never knew were there. And it's a really interesting exercise to just see what your park sounds like when your eyes are closed.
Oh, I'm sure. Even if you're not a sound designer, that's a great exercise. Okay, let's try to get to these last two questions before we finish up for the night. We have one from John, and he says, hi, Cricket. Just wanted to ask which DAW, and it's in all caps, D-A-W, you use for sound design, and if you've had any musical training for composition.
Yeah, so I don't compose. I can read music, I can read scores, but you don't want me making a melody. It's not my skill set. I'm working on it, but it's not there. The DAW I use, which stands for Digital Audio Workspace, yes, is Pro Tools. So that all of my editing is done in Pro Tools, and then playing back live sound, during a performance, QLab is what I go to first. So it lets me kind of mix and layer and get really kind of detailed fades and structures in the theater with a lot of flexibility, and then makes it very dummy proof for my board op to run. So
that's what I would need, dummy proof. Okay, now we have a question from Peg, and this is actually a question that I was curious about too. She wants to know, how long do you stay with a production once it's up and running?
My contract is over on opening night, so I'm done on opening. Yeah. My job on opening is to celebrate. Yeah, so I am typically hired 4 to 6 months out, which I'll read the script, I'll have conversations with directors. Not a lot happens that far out. My plot for the theater will be due maybe a month to 2 months out, depending on the theater. So, once I get within a month or two of tech, then it's got a lot more of my focus. I'm figuring out where I need speakers, I'm figuring out what gear I need. And then once, of course, the show hits kind of designer run and tech, it's got my full attention. Depending on the theater, that can last anywhere from 5 days to 15. So I'm there through previews, if they do previews. How an audience exists in the room often changes how the sound exists in the room. So it's really great for me to get previews where I've got a full house and can kind of see like, oh, that super subtle underscoring, now that there's 500 people here, we can't hear it. And also, like, the actors get louder, they have an audience now, and so they get louder. And so all of my sound needs to come up to match their energy, which is always exciting. But I am done on opening night.
Well, good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask all the students to come back on, turn your cameras back on if you would, and unmute so we can see you all. Here they are. Look at that great looking group of students. And if you don't mind, let's give Cricket a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here.
And I want to let everyone out there who's still watching us know that Cricket is the first in our series. We've got some great ones coming up. We have one a month. Next up, our car front seat is with Michael Stiggers. He is a Broadway actor, singer, and dancer. And once COVID hit and Broadway kind of shut down temporarily, he was actually in The Lion King on Broadway. And that's September 28th at 7 p.m. And then October 19th, we have Lizzie Gee. Lizzie is a Broadway choreographer, and also she lives in London in the West End. So that one's going to be a little bit earlier, so she doesn't have to stay up so late. So that one will be at 5 p.m. October 19th. November 2nd, we have Todd Williams. Todd is an amazing, nationally known jazz musician. He's played all over the country with every artist you can imagine. He's recorded. He's an amazing, amazing musician. So that's November 2nd. December 7th, we have a friend of yours, Cricket, David Lober. David is a stage manager. He has done numerous Broadway productions, national tours, shows in LA. He's worked with Tom Hanks, all the great, great actors. So that'll be December 7th. And then in January on the 25th, we have Jane Fitch, and she is another Broadway actor, singer, musician, and narrator. So that'll be an exciting one as well. I also want to thank Car Global. They are our sponsor for this series, and without them, we couldn't do this series at all. And when we're back into having live shows, performances at the center, they fund that version of Car Front Seat as well. So we thank them, and I encourage everyone out there to go to the Center for the Performing Arts website, thecenterpresents.org. Click on that Learn tab and see all the different education programs we have, or go to Ticket and Events, because we've got all kinds of stuff happening. We've got classics and context, jazz talk. We have a Thursday morning class for toddlers. So again, thank you all for joining us tonight, and thank you, Cricket Myers.
Thanks for
everyone.
having
Have
me.
a good evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Cricket.